Hello and welcome to Systems Wise, the show that helps business owners and teams to solve their big sales, marketing, and systems challenges one episode at a time. You can watch the video version of this episode at getsystemswise.com. I'm Gareth Everson, and on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the landing pages that you have on your website for top of funnel visitors. In the last episode, I broke down the 11 types of landing pages, and I'm going to deeper dive on today's episode around those three specific types of landing pages that are for top of funnel visitors to your site. Remember, we talked about the different stages of the funnel. If you go to getsystemswise.com/EP3, you can see the episode that covered the three stages of the marketing funnel: top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Specifically, top of funnel is those people who aren't yet really clear in their mind about what their problem relates to. They're not what we would describe as problem aware, or further down the line, solution aware of how to solve those problems that they've got. They've got a few nagging doubts. They've got a few nagging problems that are associated with not achieving what they want to, whether it's in their personal life or business life. Top of funnel relates to meeting people where they're at with those problems and frustrations so that they can start to build a picture of how to think about those problems and become more aware of how they'd address them. So today we're going to be talking about how we speak to those people on landing pages and then how we capture their details, because it's a very different concept of thinking about people who are top of funnel rather than people who are further down the funnel, who are more aware of that problem and are more aware of the solutions that are out there to solve it. So at this stage, we're thinking about providing that visitor more insight, more awareness of those challenges that they face. It might be checklists, it might be a downloadable guide, it might be an awareness piece that brings them into our world, but also helps them to understand the problems that they've got a little bit more. So when we think about top of funnel landing pages, thinking about the 11 different types of landing pages that we had in the last episode, top of funnel probably relates to these three landing pages. The first one is what I would describe as the classic lead generation landing page. So it's somebody that doesn't know you already, that is coming into your world via an ad or via a Google search or via a link on social media or something like that, who is discovering you and probably getting aware of the problems that they've got for the first time. The second one of those is what we describe as a squeeze page. So they already know you. It's already in the context of something that they're already consuming. It might be a webinar. It might be a blog post. It might be a presentation that's being given where we don't need to do much more to build rapport with them. They've already seen enough from us, from that first piece of information that they're getting. And all we're doing with a squeeze page is literally just telling them that they're in the right place and having a form on there to capture their details so that they get what we're promising them in return for that. That's a squeeze page. And that sits separately to that main content. Don't overlook this. If you are often presenting your content to an audience, whether it's webinars or in-person type events, do think about having links on your presentations or in your webinars to squeeze pages where somebody can go and opt in. The key difference between a squeeze page and a lead generation landing page is that the squeeze page has a lot less on there. You're keeping them focused on that action that you want them to take to opt in to your list and get the whatever the lead magnet is in return. The third type of top of funnel landing page, and it's not really a landing page, but I've incorporated it into this list, is what we talked about on the last episode, the splash pop-ups. So when somebody's been on your website or your content for a few minutes, it's those pop-ups that come up on the page that invite them to opt in to get some sort of resource that's related to that topic or to your service or to the problems that they have. I've included those splash pop-ups in the top of funnel section here because quite often when somebody has discovered your website through a search that they've done on Google or through a link that they've clicked from somewhere else, a splash pop-up is a great way of bringing somebody into your world and capturing their details when they might otherwise exit and never be seen again. So those are the three that we're talking about by way of top of funnel. So if we're thinking about top of funnel, they definitely aren't in the mode of buying yet. They are probably just starting to discover the problems that they've got that they want to address. It's frustrating to them. It's a challenge to them. They know that it's a pain in the bum in their life or in their business. And they're at that point where they're thinking, I need to do something about this pain that I've got. So what we want to do here is a few things. We want to keep our messaging really clear around those problems that we want to nudge them to think about. So the first thing that we need is a really clear headline that speaks to those problems and that's consistent with the message that they've seen to discover us on that page, whether it's an ad that we've got up or the social media post that we've shared or the link that somebody has passed this lead to us from. So a nice, clear headline that speaks to those problems. And when it comes to talking about what they're going to get from this lead magnet, it needs to have a really clear value proposition around, okay, you want to understand this more or you want to get to the bottom of whatever X, Y, or Z problem is, here's how you can do that. So a real clear transition from them understanding what this page is about via the headline and via the introduction into, hey, we've got a solution for you being able to understand more about this challenge that you're facing. But we don't want to bombard them with text. One of the big problems that I see on top of funnel landing pages is, as experts, we know so much about the topic that we help our clients with. And sometimes we can be too verbose, too wordy about explaining that to our clients. So really keep this lead generation or this squeeze page as brief as it can be to get their focus on thinking about these problems or these challenges that they face. The other thing that they don't know at this stage when they're top of funnel and don't really know us, don't really understand their problem, we need to get across this kind of trust factor. So having references on this page to reviews that you've got, other clients that you've worked with, that kind of thing, some sort of social proof of those testimonials or those reviews or numbers of people that you've worked with are really valuable to have. Then we're thinking about, okay, what's meaningful to that person when they're thinking about these problems and can they trust you very quickly? So having little references on there or logos to certifications you've got or qualifications can be quite meaningful as they scan that page. Then when we get to it, so you've covered the basics of what this is about and we've shown them that they're in the right place and they've got that sort of trust factor, have a really clear call to action that what they've read so far translates to what the form is that they're about to fill in and what they're about to get from you, have that on there. And in that form, we need to bear in mind some really key trust factors like having a privacy statement that you're not going to spam them, you're not going to share their data, that kind of thing, linking to your privacy policy and explicitly saying that you're only going to share with them meaningful content that's relevant to them, you're not going to be a spammer, etc., etc. And then the final thing to think about with these landing pages is think about where your audience is coming from. Not everybody accesses these pages on a desktop. It might be a mobile that they're visiting that site on, so make it mobile responsive. There's a great book by a guy called Steve Krug called Don't Make Me Think. And one of the concepts that he has in that book is the way that when people look at a website, they'll scan. And you've probably done this yourself, whether consciously or subconsciously. When you go to a page that has content on it, you'll probably scroll up and down before you devour the whole thing, just to make sure that you're in the right place. And he talks about this sort of F-shaped model of the headline and then sub-headlines and content between it that our eyes will scan up and down the page first of all. So give that page a logical structure that if somebody is just scanning, they don't feel bogged down by too much text, by something that's loading slowly, that's complicated to read, don't use industry jargon, that kind of thing. Make it really accessible for that person to see that they're in the right place really quickly. Obviously, that doesn't apply to squeeze pages because basically all of that is your headline, the promise, and a form. But this really applies to what we'd talk about as lead generation pages, where they're doing a little bit more than just having a form on there. So give plenty of thought to that structure and the makeup of the page. And when it comes to how it loads and what they see on there, make it quick to access. So if you are including images on there, make sure that they are correctly sized and you're not using the massive original versions of it that load really slowly. And when you think about what those images are they relevant and are they in context to where that person is at and what they're expecting to see on that page? If it's lots of stock photos or lots of just photos of you, is that going to connect with that audience? They want to feel that they're in the right place. And do those images that they're seeing reflect what's going on in their business or in their lives? So if you're a health and safety trainer, by way of an example, do those images on there look like a health and safety training environment? If you're a physiotherapist, are they pictures of you, the physio, or are they pictures of the types of patients that you treat? This creates a meaningful connection with people. And if you are using stock photos, don't make them the cheesy ones. They stand out a mile. You know, the big smiley faces and the shaky hands and the high fives and the really obvious sort of words and statements that often appear on stock photos. They're visible a mile off. Try and avoid those. Try and make them more natural. Try and make them more in context. The more that your visitor to that page feels like they are in their comfort zone and that they're seeing things that they would expect to, and they're feeling that they might belong in that environment of working with you, the better your chances are going to be of being able to capture them as a lead into your business and then subsequently be able to nurture them to become ready to buy. The last thing that we want to think about in terms of the structure of the page is, if you can avoid it, avoid having all of the regular clutter that you would have on your standard pages on your website. So if it's possible, if this is a lead generating page that you're sending people to from ads, try and avoid having complex headlines on there or unnecessary footer links in there. Include things like your terms and conditions and your privacy statement and your contact details, but try and abstract that away from the first places that people are reading things on that page. I wanted to keep this episode fairly short and simple and clear. And the reason I wanted to do that is because one of my experiences of working with clients on this kind of thing is that they can leave creating their landing pages for so long and overthink them and mull over them for weeks and spend days or weeks crafting what goes into these landing pages. Actually, what's more valuable to you is being able to iterate. So getting something up there that's quick to create. I call it the quick and dirty. It's probably the wrong phrase for it, but the quick and dirty version of that landing page where you're getting your value proposition up there, you're testing different headlines. If you've got software like High Level Offers where you can do split testing of that landing page, so much the better. But don't overthink all of this. It doesn't need to be a work of art when you create it for the first time. I think one of the problems that we encounter as small business owners who are interested in marketing is that we're exposed to so many really superstar experts and, if you like, the gurus in inverted commas who are out there who have thousands to spend on this kind of thing, or even teams that are doing this kind of thing for us. So when we are looking online and we're seeing other people's examples of this, often we're exposed to very slick and very highly engineered landing pages on other people's sites. What we don't ever see is their version ones. Those slick landing pages have come through multiple iterations over time that get them to that point. So the versions that you're seeing from people like a Daniel Priestley or a Donald Miller or a Russell Brunson or people like that are highly engineered versions that have gone through multiple iterations and have teams that are devoting hours and days and weeks to perfecting those landing pages. Don't be put off that your version 1 isn't at those standards. In fact, you might never get to that level with your business. But what I do know is that a basic, quick and dirty version 1 that speaks to your audience's problems and the challenges that they face right now is far better than procrastinating and not doing it. So create that version 1, iterate on it, set up split testing if your software allows you to do that, and get your landing pages out there into the world. So that covers the highlights, if you like, and some of the challenges that you need to overcome with top of funnel landing pages, some of the things that you should include and not include on that landing page. You can get the show notes for this episode if you go to getsystemswise.com/EP41. There's also a link in the show notes of this episode. And as you might expect for a series on landing pages, there's also a downloadable guide for these insights in a PDF format. So I look forward to seeing you check out my landing page to be able to go and get those guides yourself. If you've got any questions, you can always find me at askgareth.com. That takes you through to my LinkedIn profile where my DMs are open. Let's have a chat, conversation there. And if you value what you've heard today on the podcast, I'd love it if you left a review wherever you're listening to today's episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Systems Wise podcast. Remember that what we learned today builds more value if there's a plan to take action on it tomorrow. So head to getsystemswise.com and check out all the resources and training on the software and systems that you need to build a scalable business without breaking the bank. And if you value the show, please help others to discover it too by leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or by sharing a link to an episode on LinkedIn or wherever your finger does its scrolling.